What makes a legend? What mix of courage, inspiration, and inner strength propels an ordinary individual to make history, to stand out from the rest of the populace, shape the world around them, become heroes or villains? I am Funky Monkey. Come with me now as we leave the House of Love behind and enter a new realm, the House of Legends. Well, hey there, Internet, and welcome to my House of Legends. You know, legends are funny things. Tales as old as time, helping to teach us how to better live with one another and create a more perfect world. And today's legend shows us how to better live with one another's flaws and foibles, even if it is rooted in the idea of literal symbiosis. Released in 2021, Venom, Let There Be Carnage is the next chapter in the tale of the Lethal Protector. Serial killer Cletus Kasady is about to get an upgrade, courtesy of one Eddie Brock. It's down to our hero to stop Kasady and his best girl Shriek from causing destruction, mayhem, and carnage. Directed by CGI luminary Andy Serkis, this movie defied the curse of the COVID quarantine and went on to a modest profit at the box office. So come with me now to the streets of San Francisco where our protagonistic pairing are about to meet their match. Esteemed audience, one and all, let there be carnage! Even serial killers can fall in love. Well, if the prison pen pal service is anything to go by. What do you mean you've never heard of pen pals? So much we have lost in the digital age. But Cletus Kasady's paramour was dragged away in the night. Frances Barrison was her name, and she had a unique ability to be able to shriek at an ultrasonic level. Unfortunately, as this ability grew, so did her potential threat to the world, and so she was manhandled into a van and shipped off to the Ravencroft secret holding facility, where she remains to this day. As for Kasady, he's safely under lock and key as he chats with our hero. And Venom was paying attention, even if Eddie wasn't. On a more personal note, Anne and Dan are finally getting hitched, which Venom is far from happy about. Let's distract ourselves from that with the tale of Cletus Kasady. Cletus Kasady was almost stillborn, but they managed to revive him. Not that, as he tells it, he had much of a youth, and he claims that his youthful indiscretions were merely self-defense. Of course, Daddy didn't care, and left him to St. Estie's Home for Unwanted Children, where life was just as tough, until he met dear Franny, of course, and they planned to wed at the cathedral on the hill, until dear Franny was unceremoniously removed from the picture, all of which is told to Eddie on a postcard from Kasady, which in fact is an invitation to Kasady's execution. But oh dear, Venom can't contain himself. This makes Eddie very angry, and leads to a bitter fight. And so our protagonists are parted. I'm not surprised. I mean, it was only a matter of time. What surprised me was that it lasted as long as it did. So we come to the day of Kasady's execution. But oh dear. Kasady claims to have tasted blood before, but when he took a bite of Eddie, he got a taste of venom. And now the splotch has grown into its own symbiote, Carnage. At least Eddie's feeling better. Until he hears the news. Lucky Eddie though, because Kasady makes a detour to rescue his lost love. And so our star-crossed lovers are reunited. But dear Franny's own secret is bad news for Carnage. And when Mulligan follows the trail, Eddie's luck runs out. Enter Anne, to find what was lost, and to bear the symbiote back to Eddie. As Venom made his way across San Francisco, he discovered an underground club and made a heartfelt speech about letting your freak flag fly. A lovely scene, which we skipped mostly because it's more of a character moment than anything. And when Anne finds our symbiote, he's bonded to Mrs. Chen, because all of the other hosts couldn't bear him very long. So then, hop to Anne, bust out Brock, heartfelt admission, and scene. And so the stage is set for our finale, as Cletus and Franny prepare to wed. You know, I think that the greatest tragedy of this tale is that the world made them so dangerous and antithetical towards it. Perhaps without Kasady's murderous leanings or Barrison's negasonic pipes, they might have made a life for themselves. Oh well. And right on cue, our lethal protector appears. But when Carnage comes for Shriek, the symbiosis breaks down. Which is all the opening Venom needs to finish this fight. Exit Shriek. And all that Cletus wanted was a friend.
This guy.
Well, I'd say that staring down the gullet of a hungry symbiote is a little late to be lamenting that you couldn't be friends with someone, wouldn't you? And so our movie ends with our heroes considering their next move. And we may still get to that. Just because it's the last season doesn't mean that I'm completely finished yet. There's bound to be a few loose ends to tie up for a while to come. Anyway, that was Venom, Let There Be Carnage. And I'd just have to put it into my House of Love. But actually, it's also legendary enough to go into my House of Legends. At 97 minutes, credits included, this movie doesn't have a lot of time to breathe. But it's better for the brevity because it keeps a pace, and tells this wild story of just about the oddest couple in superhero cinema, meeting and impossibly surviving their dark mirror, in the form of Kasady and Carnage. And usually I have to shoehorn in the segue to the performances, but in this case they're what make this movie. Tom Hardy pulling double duty as Brock and Venom, a vocal performance that both conveys the frustration of a symbiote that yearns to eat human brains, and brings the joyous humour of the movie. And of course, Brock, the human side of the pair, who has to awkwardly cover a petulant yet impossibly powerful symbiote's outbursts. Compare and contrast Woody Harrelson's Cletus Kasady, a desperately lonely and hurting soul who just happens to have taken up serial murder as a coping strategy. Still, it makes him the perfect host for a drop of Eddie's symbiote, which quickly takes its own identity, though Harrelson's vocal performance is much less multifaceted, if only from its brevity. And that's before we even get to the supporting cast. Michelle Williams, Every Inch the hard-nosed lawyer, Naomi Harris's Francis Shriek Barrison, Crazy Eyes and Crazy Love, an 8.3 on the Harleyometer. Even Reed Scott's Dan gets his hero moment. And of course, Stephen Graham, whose Detective Mulligan becomes much more important in the final chapter of this trilogy, and it wouldn't mean a thing if the effects weren't up to snuff. But as we'll learn later in the series, this movie's director, one Andy Serkis, knows a thing or two about performing as a CGI character, and so there was plenty of care put into the visuals. Carnage's escape was spectacular, tendrils everywhere, and a final whirlwind of destruction to breach the wall and free the beast. The only real flaw in this movie for me then, is the plot point that Brock and Venom have managed to lay low for as long as they have. Surely the lethal protector would have lethally protected his way through several lowlifes and ne'er-do-wells by now, and the idea of these symbiotes being so draining to all but the most special does seem to have largely fallen by the wayside this time around. But I can't fault the accents from the British contingent, even if I feel that Graham was a little too New York for a San Francisco cop. But I'm nitpicking. This movie doesn't overstay its welcome, delivers a slobber knocker of a symbiote versus symbiote smackdown, and leaves you wanting more. More's the pity then that there's only one more Venom movie to follow. But anyway, I've been Funky Monkey, inviting you to start your own legend, though perhaps not a lethal one. So long, folks! Hey folks, Funky again. If you liked the video, you know where that button is. Why not consider subscribing and ringing the notification bell? And if you want to be extra awesome, you can check out my crowdfunding links. And if you're not fussed about any of it, that's okay too. So long!